How did the indigenous look to the moon and to the sun to actually discover agriculture? In what ways does the Mexica sun god Huitzilopochtli and his fire serpent the Xucotl give us hints into that? And how does this give us insight into ancient cradles of civilization that had took us from hunter-gatherers to civilized societies that created delicious corn tacos for us to consume today? Now, as an American software engineer turned Mexican farmer, I can't help but ask these questions as I learn the trade, and there's a grand story here that allows us to connect to our roots. So let's get into it. Ancient Mesoamerican society is unique and interesting because it developed independently from the rest of human history. So all we need to get started is a landmark and the moon. Now, as a hunter-gatherer looking into the heavens, you may notice a pattern with the moon. Sometimes it disappears, other times you're seeing small slivers, and other times you get that beautiful full moon. And you notice a pattern that's quite frequent actually every 30 days or so. Now, you obviously notice two different parts of the day. There's the nights with all the stars in the heavens, and then there's the bright sun, and you tend to wake up with the sun actually. The sun rises, it tends to move throughout the day, and the moon just kind of suddenly appears when the sun goes away. So you're hunting and gathering with your group in a certain region. You really like the berries and the fruits and the vegetables and stuff like that because it's a lot less dangerous than, hunting an animal or something. Then you have this wonderful idea that maybe you should track the sun. Every time there's a nice bright full moon, you're going to notice the position of the sun as the sun rises in the morning. And as you do this, you see that the sun starts to dance in a similar way that the moon dances throughout the year. So as you look at the position of the sun as it rises relative to a landmark that you've selected, you actually notice this undulating pattern. Now, in certain positions in this rotation, you notice that it rains more, the weather is cooler, there's more berries that you can pick, there's more vegetation to select from. And in other positions, it's hotter and some of the vegetation struggles to actually survive. There's a rotation going on here. You have the sunrise with the landmark and then it recedes away from the landmark and then it returns back to it. What's going on? The snake-like undulating pattern is a 2D representation of something happening in 3D space in motion. So let's break that down a little bit. Now, don't get scared off because this is math. This is actually pretty cool. As you track the positions on the XY plane of a circle, you get this sine wave, this cosine wave, you get a wave function. So if we transpose this two-dimensional orbit in space and if we track the positions as these things are moving, you get this helix pattern or this snake-like pattern as well. And this ultimately brings us back to the Mexica sun god Huitzilopochtli and his fire serpent that he's wielding, the Xucotl. So pretty cool, just through the examination of the actual deities, you're able to see how they've engineered their society. Why is there a sun god, or a god of death, or a god of corn? Obviously, anybody that constructed society from nothing is quite brilliant. Maybe you can start to question things like, why did Christianity demonize the serpent so much? What was the actual value there? But that's a question for another day. If you enjoyed this, I appreciate you. I appreciate a follow too, so we can create more content like this. And I'd love if you check out my work.